Greetings everyone, Strategic Sage here with a relatively brief announcement on a feature that will hopefully be coming to AI War 2 after the Zenith Onslaught DLC. That's still the priority, that's still scheduled at this point for May. So I'm going to get into the what is going on with these game modes that are coming, and then also, why this is being considered as a thing. Check out the design document they have circulating in the link in the description below if you want more details, because it's laid out there. For the purposes of demonstration, this is your basic difficulty 7 map, standard, no adjustments made. We can see all of the typical amounts of different capturables and destroyables and all of the things that come with that. So there are 3 modes that are under discussion right now. Names, details may change some, but this is where it sits at the moment. First one, Humanity Ascendant. Now, that sounds like a complicated name, but all it means is the way things are now. If you like the game the way it is, if you like the way it is with the rebalancing coming out of beta, all the different hacking options, etc. that are now available, you just leave it that way. You don't change anything. Your Apple Cart doesn't get upset. You don't opt into either of the other 2 modes, which are more in the challenge area overall. And you just go on about your business. Second one, Guerrilla Warfare is the current name. That one will probably change. But the idea is there will be an additional capturable items, a couple of them they're working on right now, different kinds of control stations that are seated around the map. And the idea behind these is you have to capture them in order to gradually assemble and upgrade your military. Because if you don't have enough of those control stations under your control, then you will have limited ability to have, more ship lines, more turrets, more lone wolves and officer fleets, etc. Think of it as sort of infrastructure or supply lines that the AI can counterattack, that you have to defend. Now, if you lose them, then some of your stuff is weakened and or powers down. And also, the AI will hit you with some additional waves, reprisal type attacks. But under the Guerrilla Warfare mode, it would not be a permanent loss. You would be able to fight your way back to that system and rebuild it. Then there is the final one, which is Death Wish, and sort of half-jokingly being called Full Sage mode. Under that one, there's a lot of permanent loss that happens. If, for example, you have an officer fleet that gets down to the point where it would be crippled, it's not crippled, it just sort of regresses to a normal transport. You keep all the ship lines that come with it, but the officer itself loses all of its cool abilities and damage bonuses and all of those things that it normally comes with. If we're talking about a lone wolf fleet, it's even worse, it's simply destroyed. It doesn't exist anymore. Then with the control stations that I mentioned, if you lose one of those, you can't rebuild it. You simply have to get another one somewhere else. And that's your basic overview right now of where we are with the various modes. Again, go ahead and check the link in the description below. All additional comments, ideas would definitely be valuable on this. One of the reasons why I'm doing this video now. What's the point of all this? Why are these modes even being considered? What benefit are they going to have to your gameplay? Well, think back to before the shift in the long, beta rebalancing period. Think about the IGCs and the GCAs, the Global Command Augmenters, that gave you additional turrets or strike craft and frigates in case of the IGCs as well. And you could hack them. Mechanics weren't exactly the same as we're talking about here, but the hacking got really expensive if you always did that. So a lot of the time, you were going to want to at least try to defend some of them. And the idea is that, for example, with the IGCs, there was 3 different kinds and only 1 of each kind in the galaxy. So you couldn't just, if you didn't like where that one was, if it wasn't a convenient place for you to defend it, then you either had to hack it, or put up with that inconvenience, or do without it. So let's take a specific example, a Dinsdale Piranha down here. Now, let's say there's something really valuable in there. We'll call it a control station for now. You capture that. It's going to give you a bonus to your military. Be able to field a larger military. And then you have to defend this now against 4 incoming wormholes. So that's not going to be that easy to do. Let's say you're off on the attack now. You know, you've done that, you're off on the attack, and you're pushing your way through here, getting closer to the AI homeworld. And then a wave hits, or Hunter decides to come in here, or a CPA, or whatever it is. Well, the way the game is now, unless that's your home command station, or a major data center, which just makes them easier to defend by lowering AI progress, so it doesn't really something that's particularly difficult to defend in the overall picture, you just ignore it. You don't care. You've got enough turrets up there probably to slow down the enemy on a lot of the attacks, but if they knock it out, fine, you're just going to go back there and you're going to rebuild it later. It doesn't cost you anything really. I mean, it costs you the time and the resources to rebuild it, sure, but it would also cost you time and resources to bring back your fleet and defend. So, I mean, you're just going to, most of the time, let it go, keep going on your attack, whatever you're doing, get set up over whatever objective you're trying to accomplish, then you come back and rebuild, and you go on about the process of going towards the end game. It's all offensive. You're not required to split your forces between offense and defense or lose something valuable that you either can't replace or is really hard to replace. In the case of the guerrilla warfare mode, you'd be able to replace it eventually. So there's more penalties to losing specific systems. You'd still have a bunch of expendable systems, too. They wouldn't all be critical, but you have some critical points of infrastructure that you have to defend, or you're going to pay a price. Now, there's another aspect to this, which is the way that you expand now in your mid-game strategy because of this. Because as you're taking these territories, like say there's a control station here, you have all kinds of things to think about. For example, let's say it could be a poison planet. And what I mean by that is just you got a control station here in the middle, and you're going to get attacked from all four directions. Well, that's going to be really painful, really hard to defend. You're going to try hard to find another solution that doesn't involve having to take this planet, because that's really going to be a pain. Now, it can be the opposite. You can have one, maybe say over here, between these two wormholes, and it'd be a little bit difficult to defend, but, you know, it might be okay. And you might even have another valuable capsule item, like it might be, you know, fairly close by like this to a major data center or a Zenith power generator or whatever. And so in that case, this would be a really valuable system to take. It'd be well worth even putting some extra defenses in here to defend it because of the amount of bonus you're going to get out of this. Another possible scenario, let's say it spawns up here by Far Icecrackers. Okay, so we can defend against these three wormholes easily, but we're sitting right on top of this. Anything comes through here, we're not going to have time to destroy it if they're coming through in force. We're not going to have time to come rescue it. It's just a mess. We can't defend that successfully. Well, let's say that there's a fleet over here that we could grab if we wanted to capture Far Icecrackers, but it's not that great of a fleet. This one's probably better over here in Parataxis. This one, Analyzer, is probably better. You know, the point being is there's other fleets, other places that are better. I'd prefer not to take this system in isolation, but maybe if I take this system, it also allows me to then stick, you know, a command station over this wormhole, so that's going to defend anything from coming in this way. And I can use it, you know, so I'm taking two systems to get the aggregate picture. That is, I'd rather have a weaker fleet here and the control station in here than just get a better fleet, you know, somewhere else. This would be the better total package for me. And so it has a big effect on how you expand through the mid-game and gives you a lot more interesting dynamics and options. Each galaxy sort of has a little bit more of its own flavor. And the choices just, you know, explode in complexity. Not because each individual choice is super complex, but you have that complexity arising from relatively simple elements. And to me, that's always been a big part of really good game design when that happens. And I think that we had that previously and just sort of got somewhat unintentionally lost when we went through the rebalancing period of the shift in beta. That's my sales pitch on why I really think this is an important idea, at least in general concept, to have. You know, the balance between offense and defense being required of the player, and also what it does to really enrich the mid-game expansion strategy as you go about reshaping the galaxy. I also want to be really straightforward about how all of this came about. Back when we were coming out of the beta, I really had my ear to the ground for a while. You know, listening to what everybody was saying, the people who were playing it more in the beta and testing it and more familiar with it than I was at that time, really saying, you know, this is fantastic. and, basically like a free DLC. And a lot of truth to that. A lot of great stuff happened to improve the game during that period. And then there's a lot more positivity, almost complete positivity, the feedback that has been received anyway, after that came out, and, more and more people began to look at it, kick the tires. It's always an interesting period when that happens, because it's an extended period of time that a significant change has been made, and it's going to be overwhelming to some people, and some are going to accept it, some aren't. But the overall was just overwhelmingly positive. And having discussions with some people on the Discord, I had some concerns, such as the ones we would talk about in this video, that were not really shared by the other players so far as I could tell. And I wasn't seeing anybody else bring up the things that were bothering me. And so I had a conversation with Chris Park, the developer. It was not all a situation where I was asking things to be changed in this way. I didn't come with him a bunch of ideas and ask him to move the game in this direction. It was more just, to me, it was losing pieces of what I've always enjoyed about AI War. And so I was more just expressing that to him, but also saying, look, this is great in the sense that people are really enjoying the game more. That's what a good developer does. But I was thinking maybe I'm going to walk away from this game because it's not fitting with what I enjoy. We had a back and forth about it. He thought some of my ideas had merit and was really, humble and wanting to look at ways to make the game better, as he always is. He's a really excellent attitude towards all that. Bounced some ideas around, and essentially what came out of that is the core of the mode proposal that's now the subject of this video. The point of relaying all that is that my fingerprints are definitely on this a lot. It probably wouldn't be happening now if I hadn't basically thrown a fit. But at the same time, I'm not taking credit for any of these ideas. They were his ideas, combining what I was saying with things that he's thought about long term, and he's the one who took the initiative in wanting to potentially tweak this, put all that together. And I'm definitely an advocate for it because I think it has the potential to get the game to a point where I'm really enjoying it again, while all the majority of players who really like the way it is now can still keep what they want. But I just want to make sure it's clear that this is not something that I came up with and demanded to be put in the game for me or anything like that, and that Chris gets his proper credit for being the architect of this, because he is. So we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, it's always possible that there simply will be enough people that aren't interested in seeing this at all that it won't happen. And it's also possible that this will be a really excellent addition to the game. Always be interested in your feedback down in the comments below, or, you have a chance here, if this is something that interests you, to also go to that design document and leave suggestions for Chris as well. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been informative, interesting, useful to all of you. And I'll see you soon as we move on towards Zenith Onslaught DLC.